this then today because it's going to be really helpful in just kind of referring to it and kind of building upon this. So I'm going to just recap everything that we covered. But before I want to do that, I'm just going to tell you, for those of you who are new here, who may not know who I am, I'm a master NLP coach and I'm an NLP trainer. So I certify others to become NLP coaches and NLP practitioners. So if you want any information about that, please do reach out. It'd be great to have a chat. So yesterday we talked about how thoughts become things. And what we talked about was about how our thoughts become things. So basically we have an external event, and external events happen in our lives like every day, like an event, like things happen. When I say an event, I don't necessarily mean something special or something big. I just mean like everything's an event. Like I'm sat here now talking to you, that's an event, right? So events happen in our lives, and what happens is that information goes in. I read this morning, which I don't think that figure's right, that we get 8 million pieces of information every second. But I'm sure that David Hamilton, in one of his latest books, talks about like getting like 134 trillion or something like that. And I wanted to check that I had the right figure, but it doesn't really matter. It's a lot of information. That's the main thing. But yeah, events happen in our lives. And what happens then is we perceive this, the information goes into our minds, and based on our memories that have happened in the past, our values that we have, and our beliefs that are formed as we've grown up, and especially within our imprint period between the ages of 0 to 7, based on that information that we have, this is like our script. And so if you think about this like as a script, so I think that's a pen really. So think about this like this is our script, and then we delete, distort, and generalize information based on our script, which is basically our model of the world. And everyone has a different model of the world based on their own memories, their own values, their own beliefs, different events that have happened, and then they've filtered that information through. So what happens then when we delete, distort, and generalize information is we create an image or a movie on our internal telly. So if you imagine that you've got a picture in your mind, an internal telly, like you've got a Netflix, like a Beckflix, like Rebecca Flix. You've got an internal telly, and you create an internal representation of everything that happens in your life. But your internal representation is different from somebody else's internal representation because they've had different memories, different values, and different beliefs. And then what happens is from our internal telly and how we perceive that information, our physiology is built from that, which gives us our state, which is like our mood and our behavior. And then we project that back out onto the world. And that's how we perceive information on a daily basis. So basically, this is what we spoke about yesterday in quite a lot of depth. We then spoke about beliefs and like how beliefs are formed and how we have beliefs. Now, we spoke about limiting beliefs, and we use the example of a poor money mindset or making money as a struggle. So I explained to you and I told you a story about I had a limiting belief of I had to work really hard and I had to struggle to make money. And even though I was doing okay, like I was doing between 4, 5, 6K a month, I really had this goal of wanting to achieve 10K months. And so I did the work on myself. I have NLP coaching as well as an NLP coach and hypnosis, and I removed that limiting belief after I became aware of it. And so that limiting belief, let me just cover that quickly, came from so when I was 3, I saw my mum working really hard, 3 or 4. And remember, this is within the imprint period between 0 and 7. And so this is when we're like so if you want to imagine like we're like a sponge and we just soak up all the information and all the events that happen in our lives, and we take that from our parents, from our teachers, from the people that we really look up to within that period of time. So our belief then, so this specific belief was formed when I was 4 years old and I saw my mum working really hard, and then it still felt like we had no money. So internally I created this belief, making money is a struggle. Then the next one, another event happened a couple of years later, which then reinforced that belief, right? So every time that belief is reinforced in my internal telly, so this isn't necessarily true. In fact, it's not true, because when I did the work on myself, I realized that well, my mum loves working. My mum does work really hard, but it's not a struggle for her. Like, she loves what she does. And so I created this internal representation, which created a belief. Well, I perceived this event, and which created a belief, which then created an internal representation, right? Are you following this? So then every time an event happens, I create a belief which reinforces, and then it creates a really solid top to the belief. Like, so like, I believe it to be true. But when I did the work on myself and I understood, right, what was the first event that happened in my life which made me think that making money was a struggle, or I had to work really hard to make money and it still wouldn't happen. And what happened was, once I knocked this out, this like solid reason as to why I had this belief, I hit 10k months that same month. Like, and I'm not telling you this to show off. I'm telling you this because it's possible for you too. And I want you to see the power of like how by just knocking out the beliefs that aren't true, it can have a massive impact on your life. So I want you to think about then, like, what beliefs do you have like that are not serving you in your life? Like, what beliefs do you have that you can reframe? What I mean by reframe is we want to change our internal telly picture, right? And the physiology that we get from that and the feelings that we get from that. Because when we create this internal representation, not only do we get a picture, not only it might be a picture, it might be a movie, not only do we get a picture, but we also then get feelings as well. And then we associate and get like a physiology in our state from that. And that then leads into our behaviors. Okay. So I'll kind of okay, so the way that I was behaving then in terms of this specific limiting belief was, I don't know, subconsciously I would sabotage. Like, you've heard of the term self-sabotage, right? So self-sabotage is when so I'll give you an example of, I don't know if I can give, yeah, okay, I'll give you an example of mine. So I would launch a program, an online course, and then I would, just as I was about to launch it, like, so I'd do all the prep work, I'd get ready to launch it, and then just before I was about to launch it, I'd change my mind and I'd be like, I actually don't want to do this. But I didn't consciously know that I was changing my mind, and I didn't consciously know that it was self-sabotage. But what happened was I unconsciously sabotaged my efforts by telling myself that I didn't want to do it anymore. I'd changed my mind. And so my behavior was acting in accordance with the beliefs that I had and the internal telly, right? So even if consciously I wasn't aware that I had this limiting belief of making money is a struggle, what happens is, when you have NLP coaching, your coach will help you unpick and understand what them beliefs are. If there's something that you're, like, if there's a goal or something that you're trying to achieve and you can't achieve it, or you're struggling to achieve it, your NLP coach would help you understand, like, what is that belief, and then they'll help you change it. So the behaviors then was, okay, I don't want to launch that anymore, I've changed my mind, right? So that's complete self-sabotage. And once I got rid of that, I just launched it and did it, right? Does this make sense? So I want you to think about what's happening in your life. Is there anything that's showing up in your life that you are acting unconsciously with to sabotage your efforts in achieving the things that you want to achieve? Is there something that's coming up? And it's like, I see this so often in relationships, and I can recall it in my own experience as well from, years ago. So obviously now I'm married, I've got 2 kids, and I'm really happy, and I'm really lucky. My husband's amazing, but 10 years ago, I was in a really bad place, and I was in a really abusive relationship. And then what happened then is, after I managed to break free from that relationship, I didn't believe I was worthy enough to be in a relationship, a loving relationship. And so I would sabotage any further relationships because I didn't believe. So I was acting in accordance with the belief I didn't believe I was worthy of having it. Ask yourself, like, what are the beliefs that are coming up for you that are stopping you from taking action? And this is going to be really helpful when we come to changing the beliefs as well. Story that I shared on my Facebook last night, because I think this is so relevant for when it comes to beliefs. And it goes like this. As a man was passing the elephants, he suddenly stopped, confused by the fact that huge creatures were being held by only a small rope tied to the front of their leg. No chains, no cages, and it was obvious that the elephants could at any time break away from their bonds, but for some reason they did not. He saw a trainer nearby and asked why these animals just stood there and made no attempt to get away. Well, the trainer said, when they are very young and much smaller, we use the same size rope to tie them, and at that age, it's enough to hold them, and as they grow, they are conditioned to believe that they cannot break away. They believe that the rope can still hold them, so they will never try to break free. The man was amazed. These animals could at any time break free from their bonds, but because they believed they couldn't, they were stuck right where they were. Like the elephants, many of us go through life hanging on to a belief that we cannot do something simply because we failed at it once before, or simply just because it's been formed in our lives with where we are. Hi, Karen. So I also want to touch on as well, there's a really good story that I share in the NLP Foundations training about a barracuda, and the story goes like this. So there's a barracuda in a fish tank, and barracudas eat small fish. So in the fish tank, there was some small fish and there was the barracuda, and the barracuda just kept going and eating the fish. So the man who owned the tank, he just had to keep buying fish until one day he decided to put in a glass perspex. Right, and so he put in this glass perspex, you know, like it's not glass really, it's like plastic, isn't it? And what happened was the barracuda would go and try to eat the fish, but he'd knock into the perspex, knock himself out, float to the bottom, and wake up like, geez, what happened? And then he'd wake up, swim around again, he'd see the fish, straight into the perspex again, right? And then he'd wake up, see the fish, straight into the perspex again, and he realized that he just kept getting knocked out, right? So what happened is the next time the fish woke up, he would swim to the perspex right where it was, and then he would turn around and swim in the opposite direction, and he would keep doing this because he didn't want to, you know, he'd learn the behavior, he'd learn, and he'd created this belief that he couldn't go no further. So what happened then was the perspex was removed from the fish tank, but amazingly, the fish still didn't go any further than where the perspex once was. But the perspex was no longer there, so it wasn't actually real. So I want you to think about, how is this showing up in your life? Like, is there something that you know is possible to achieve, or that you have created a belief about that isn't possible to achieve? And what we're going to do is it's going to really help with tomorrow, because tomorrow we're going to be talking about changing the system. In terms of your script as well, every event that happens in your life gets compared to your script. So what happens is you've got like these script, you can imagine, so this is your script, this is your filter, right? So you've got these filter goggles on, right, all day, and you're seeing through like your filter goggles, so that's what you see the world through. And this is why we've all got different belief systems and different values, different memories, and this is how we act then, and how we get our internal telling. And this is why some people, like, you know, well, this actually is why now I'm creating 10K months, and before I was only creating 4K months, right? Because I had these goggles on, and when I changed the goggles or removed the goggles, it allowed me to notice different things. And what I want to touch on actually, which might be really helpful, is the reticular activating system. So you may have heard me talking about this before. Just let me finish off actually with the script. So everything that comes in gets compared to your script. So that creates your model of the world. And so you want to think like your model of the world isn't necessarily the truth, especially because we all have different models of the world, right? That's why we've got beliefs and other people have different ones. So the reticular activating system then is like a door. If you could imagine like a door on the front of your mind, and imagine that you will only let in what you like. Your door will only let in what it believes, like what it Like, it will only filter through the things that you notice. Does this make sense? So this is why goal setting is really important as well, and we'll touch on this more tomorrow. But if you set a goal for yourself and you want to achieve something, and then you reinforce that goal every single day, you're telling your reticular activating system, let's notice this, let's see opportunities, let's open ourselves up for more. It's like when you buy a new car, and you might never have seen it before anywhere, but then as soon as you buy it, you see it everywhere. And that's because your reticular activating system has been given that information to now open up and let that information in. Does this make sense? So if you're not feeling good, if you're ever feeling like you're in a bad state or you're not feeling good, it's because that you might have negative thoughts and negative beliefs that are holding you back, and stopping you from achieving the things that you want to achieve. So I want to just talk about them really quickly before we finish up. Like, you can watch all of this information and you can take all of this information in, but how much of it are you actually implementing into your life? Like, how much are you learning that you're actually doing something with? And so I want you to write down an action step for yourself today and ask yourself, like, what action do I need to take today from this information that I'm learning? How will it help me? I just want you to ask yourself, if life was a bus, where would you be sitting? Are you driving? Are you in the driving seat of your own life, or are you letting other people in the driving seat of your own life? I just want you to have a think about that before our next session tomorrow. And tomorrow we're talking about changing the system. So have we got any questions? Marie says, part of me knows that I can have a successful business, but the reality is stuff like household stuff, parenting gets in the way. But the question is, am I self-sabotaging? I don't necessarily think that that's self-sabotaging. That could just be an excuse. We have excuses, and we're going to talk about this tomorrow as well. So tomorrow we're going to talk about cause and effect and how we can change our belief systems and how we can stop giving ourselves excuses as to why we can't achieve things. And I'm not saying that the things that you are coming up as challenges and barriers are not real things, because I'm also a mum with 2 children, so I know, I get it. But I don't use having to do that stuff as an excuse as to why I can't do the things I want to do. And when I first started my business 3 years ago, I had a full-time job. I just got married. I had a house to sort out. I had a 1-year-old, and I had all the things going on. And then I was starting a new business as well. So the thing is, do you want to achieve them or not? Ask yourself that question and be in the driving seat of your own bus. So I will catch you all tomorrow when we are talking about changing the system. And I'm going to give you some really amazing tools to support you to change your beliefs and to knock out these beliefs. And we're going to be talking about some really good NLP techniques that will help you with that.